You recall Tim Tebow, that star from Florida, didn't make it in the NFL, went to the minor leagues in baseball. Well, guess what? He's now been given a tryout by the Jacksonville Jaguars by his former college coach. Good news, right? Well, not to Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, who considers this to be an example of white privilege.
I texted Tim Tebow a couple of weeks ago, and I told him that if anybody deserves, something along this line, it's him. Just from a human perspective, I think that he's one of the great people that I've had the pleasure of meeting in this business. He's a really good dude. His heart's in the right place. He's very charitable and philanthropic with his intentions and his actions. He's a pillar of that community, especially. Was a star at Florida State, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm happy for him, meaning Tim Tebow specifically. But when you look at, just the totality of the situation, once again, if I'm going to bring up white privilege when I brought up Steve Nash getting the job in Brooklyn, is this not an example of white privilege? What brother is getting this opportunity?
Now Stephen A. also slams Steve Nash. Steve Nash was an NBA superstar who was given a head coaching job with no previous coaching experience. Again, another example of somebody skipping the line, white privilege.
One, are you sensitive to this idea of skipping the line? How do you feel about that? And two, having not been an assistant coach, but obviously having played the game at a high level, are there things that you think you might not have as a head coach that you missed by not being an assistant, and how do you compensate for that?
Well, I did skip the line, frankly. But at the same time, I think leading an NBA team for almost 2 decades is pretty unique.
Good Lord. It's hard to get more woke than Steve Nash. Have you seen his Twitter avatar? But that wokeness did not protect Steve Nash from being slammed by Stephen A., did it? Now, what again did he say about Tim Tebow?
What brother is getting this opportunity?
And about Mr. Nash?
Are you sensitive to this idea of skipping the line?
As to when a brother gets an opportunity like that, I have 2 words. Michael Vick.
I have a developing story to tell our viewers about right now.
My best friend called me and told me I knew it was over.
How could a football star making literally millions of dollars allegedly get involved in something like this?
Allegations of hanging, shooting, body slamming, even electrocuting dogs to death is a record-breaking NFL superstar, a former #1 draft pick, losing a $120 million contract over dogfights.
Michael Vick spent 2 months in Northern Neck Regional Jail and another 16 in Leavenworth Federal Prison.
All right, a lot of people talking Michael Vick today. Folks, he's been released from prison. He's back out, and pretty soon the NFL will be deciding what his fate is.
He's apologized. He's faced it like a man. He's manned up. And by the way, he's one of the greatest football players in America and providing lots of entertainment.
He made a mistake, and do you understand that? Which he did, completely understood it. And so he was given a second chance.
Made a horrible mistake, and now I want to be part of the solution and not the problem.
Say again, Stephen A.
What brother is getting this opportunity?
Elder here for Birch Gold. As one of the top dealers of physical precious metals in the United States, Birch Gold Group helps Americans diversify their savings with gold and silver. Customers can purchase for physical possession or convert a portion of their IRA or 401k into an IRA backed by physical precious metals. And for the first time since Obama's first term, we are facing a democratically controlled White House, Senate, and House. Sounds like a lot of tax and spending to me. Get ready for more so-called quantitative easing. Now, how does that affect your investment? How does that affect the strength of your portfolio? So, contact Birch Gold Group to request a free info kit on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold makes sense for you. This comprehensive 20-page kit reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of risky stocks and bonds into a precious metals IRA. To get your no-cost, no-obligation kit, text Larry to to 474747. That's text Larry to 474747. Stephen A., there have been a number of NBA head coaches who were black with no prior head coaching experience at any level. I give you Bill Russell, the first black NBA head coach.
On April 18, 1966, Bill Russell becomes first African-American coach in NBA history at Boston Celtics. On April 16, 1966, Bill Russell agreed to become head coach of the Boston Celtics. A public announcement was made 2 days later. Russell thus became the first black head coach in NBA history.
Jason Kidd.
Newly retired and probable Hall of Fame point guard Jason Kidd was named the new Brooklyn Nets head coach. Has he head coached a game before? Nope. Has he assisted coached a game before? Nope.
The great Magic Johnson.
The hiring of Magic Johnson to coach the Lakers is a move that evokes reactions and questions, most notably if he's physically up to the task.
Let me just say this to everybody before I'm fine, I'm great. Don't worry about that. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing this, okay? So let me just ease everybody's mind.
He's unmistakably ready and willing, but a looming question is whether he's able. Johnson was electrifying as a player, but as a coach, he's an unknown quantity.
Lenny Wilkens, from 1969 to 1972 with Seattle, and in his one season as a player with Portland, he was a player coach. Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas was hired to be the new president of basketball operations on December 22, 2003. Isaiah Thomas's tenure as the coach and the president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks.
But then madness. Mo Pete and Al Harrington get tangled up. Al believes that Mo did it on purpose. Isaiah Thomas said he's upset because he feels that people are taking cheap shots at the Pacers. Party's on.
It's going to be on for the rest of the season.
Stephen A., come again.
What brother you know is getting this opportunity?
Switching sports, Ray Lewis. The man was involved in a murder trial, pled guilty to obstruction of justice.
The epic football career of Ray Lewis almost ended 13 years ago outside the Cobalt Lounge nightclub in Atlanta, just hours after the 2000 Super Bowl. A fight breaks out, and when the dust settles, Jason Baker and Richard Lawler are stabbed to death, left in the street. Ray Lewis and two friends, Joseph Sweeting and Reginald Oakley, are charged with murder. There's a blood trail, eyewitnesses, and a cover-up of lies that would prove guilt. The limo driver told investigators he heard Oakley and Sweeting admit stabbing the victim. Both men deny this. Other witnesses said Ray Lewis yelled at everyone inside the limo, there were 11 in all, to keep their mouths shut and not say anything, and that my football career is not going to end like this. But the white suit Ray Lewis was wearing that night has never been found. Prosecutors suspected it was stained in the victim's blood and that someone took the knives and suit and threw them all away. The murder trial crumbled on live television. Witnesses backtracked on their stories. Defense attorneys eviscerated the credibility of many witnesses. It got so bad that prosecutors had to drop murder charges against Ray Lewis in the middle of the trial and offered him a plea deal. Lewis pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge of obstruction of justice in exchange for testifying against Sweeting and Oakley. And the man still got a gig as a sportscaster.
And look who came out of the smoke to join us right here on the set.
I got ready to run out of the smoke. I thought you was going to introduce me and put on hot in here or something.
Well, it's good to see you, Ray Lewis. Good to see you. Are you aware that you're technically a draft choice of Bill Belichick?
Yes, yes. This is what we're talking about, Judy. We're talking about giving this kid an opportunity to get back in the National Football League. I'm a living witness. When you take a defensive tackle that dominant, he leads you where you want to go.
As far as the NFL is concerned, it turns out that the NFL players are less likely to have criminal records than men of the same age who are not NFL players, but they're more likely to be convicted or arrested for domestic violence. Approximately 7% of the people who played in the NFL between 2000 and 2014 were arrested, according to a CNS analysis, a lower arrest rate than the group of similarly aged men in the U.S. general population. But when compared with U.S. men aged 21 to 34, NFL players were disproportionately arrested and charged with domestic violence, sex offenses, murder, and weapons-related crimes. These crimes accounted for a much larger portion of total arrests in the NFL. And since 2000, every NFL team has had more than 10 arrests. But some teams had a much bigger arrest problem than others. Minnesota Vikings players were arrested 47 times over the last 14 seasons, an average of more than 3 per year. Washington's NFL franchise and the Baltimore Ravens each averaged less than 2 per year, end of quote. Now, in one of this week's Road Rages, I gave Stephen A. some love, sort of.
Morning, Road Ragers. There's a sportscaster named Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, normally pretty rational, but he went on a tirade the other day about how Tim Tebow, great dude, and he congratulated Tim Tebow on getting a tryout with the Jacksonville Jaguars for a position that he's never played before, and then proceeded to talk about how he didn't deserve the tryout. It was only about white privilege, and but for the fact that he knew the coach, who was his coach at Florida State. Actually, it was Florida, Stephen A. And this is an example of white privilege, and this is why black people are upset about George Floyd. And he also said, when does a brother get a chance like this? Stephen A., I got 2 words to say. Michael Vick. The brother murdered dogs. The brother lied to his owner about it. The brother went to prison. The brother filed for bankruptcy. Gets out, gets back into the league, becomes the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. When does a brother get a chance like that? Michael Vick, Stephen A. Michael Vick.
So in sum, Stephen A., how you went from Tim Tebow getting a tryout with the Jacksonville Jags to George Floyd is beyond me. But a whole bunch of brothers have been given opportunities. A whole bunch of brothers have skipped the line. There's plenty of stuff to complain about in America without making up artificial stuff. I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.